Hi everyone, Gareth at QCT here, bringing you episode 4 in my XCP-ng series. So XCP-ng is an open source hypervisor that we use for running virtual machines at QCT. So before we get too far into this episode, we'll just go and have a quick look at the plan for the series, and then we'll get into this one. Okay, so as you can see there, we video series setting up XCP-ng 8.2. So episode 1 was just basically looking at what we're going to do, how we're going to go about doing it. 2 is downloading and installing. Episode 3 was looking at the network interfaces and bonding them and setting up VLANs. We're on episode 4 now, which is this one. So we're going to be looking at local storage, making an ISO repository, adding some more local storage, and a quick conversation about the different types of storage as well. Episode 5, we're going to look at creating a couple of virtual machines, a Linux one, a Windows one, and a pfSense setup. We're then going to look at some shared storage, so using iSCSI, NFS, and Fibre Channel. And then for episode 7, we're going to work on creating pools. So using the shared storage that we created in episode 6, we're going to then look at creating pools and moving virtual machines around and failover and that sort of good stuff. So first thing we're going to need to do, I started the series working on a server which was sat down here for ages, which was our event server. Hasn't been out of the office for a year as a result of the current global situation, but actually it's gone out on a job. So before we get started, I actually need to create myself a nice clean XCP-ng server. So the next bit of video you should see will be me in my cave, which is downstairs in the offices here, just doing a quick run through, doing a clean install of XCP-ng. Alrighty, so here we are in my cave where my servers and all my spare bits and bobs live. So I don't know whether you can see whether it's quite in shot here, but down here we've got a couple of UPSs, SAN, and 2 HP servers. We've then got this HP server up on top, which is a test box that I use for TrueNAS. Sorry, forgetting what it's called for a minute there. So we're going to grab XCP-ng, and we're going to install that on one of these here servers. And you have to excuse my wonky monitor. I need to fix that at some point. Okay, so this is not going to be a full how to install XCP-ng video. I'm going to fast forward through the vast majority of it, but I did need to just reinstall XCP-ng on this server in order to do the storage video that you're currently watching. So I figured I might as well just put the reinstall in as part of it. The only thing that I will do different from the previous video that I did on setting up XCP-ng is that I won't be configuring any storage on this one. So because we already have the server up and running and that already has Zen Orchestra on it, we don't need to install Zen Orchestra on this machine at this point. We will do later probably, but so we will do this with absolutely no storage on whatsoever, and then I will configure all of the storage from Zen Orchestra after adding this server into Zen Orchestra. So yeah, I'll get on with it. Okay, so now that is done, the first thing we're going to need to do is just connect up to that machine and actually give it the correct IP address, because it's going to be on a Dhcp address currently. So we'll give it its correct IP and restart it, and then we'll go about creating the storage. So give me a couple of seconds and we'll get onto that. This is going to be going over a couple of bits that we did in the last episode, but I'm just into my pfSense box here. We're going to go to Dhcp Leases. I think it was 118 that this is up on. Oh, there it is, top of the list for some reason. Okay, so there we go. So that's our server. So I'm just going to add a reservation in for this, although I am then going to log onto the server and set it manually as well. The IP address that we want this server to have, if we just go and have a look at our list. So this is host 2, and we're looking at the actual the main server interface here. I will set the ILO as well, but we'll look at the main system interface here. So that should be 31. So that is Zen 2.16.100.31. The host name. What am I doing? That bit in. So hopefully you can see all of that. Probably should have zoomed that in a little bit. Okay, so it's pulled the MAC address through for us. IP address is in there. Host name is the actual host name. Quick description of where it is. Don't need to worry about anything else. Save that and apply changes. So if this server does by any chance come up on DHCP, it should grab that address. But what we will also do is we will head over here and we'll just Control Shift plus that, and we will SSH onto it. 172.16.100.118, and we want root at. Okay, and we'll go XS console to actually launch the. Need to reduce the screen size a little bit there. There we go. Configure management interface. Password in. Static. 30. I forgot now. 31 or 32? 31. Okay. So at this point, we should lose connection. Okay, so there we are. So we're still waiting for this other window to time out. It will eventually time out and kick us out of there, but we are back up and running with that on the correct IP address with the reservation in as well. Excellent. I'm going to quit that. But I'm going to leave that window open because we are going to do a couple of things on the command line a bit later on. So next thing to do is going to be to head across to our Zen Orchestra box and add this server into Zen Orchestra. Okay, and we're all nicely logged in here. So we're now going to go to Settings and Servers, and we're going to add a server. The label is going to be QCT vhost2, and the address is 172.16.100.31, username and password. We're going to tick this because this is the unauthorized certificates column. This is basically, do you want to allow unsecure or using self-signed certificates? We are using self-signed certificates, so we do want to allow that. So hit connect on that. And if we now go to home and hosts, we should now see server 2 in here as well. So nothing set up on the networking side, nothing set up on the storage side, and a load of updates waiting to go on, maybe. Before we actually go and create any storage, I just wanted to draw your attention to this document on the XCP-ng documentation website. So it's at xcp-ng.org/docs, and then click on the storage link just there. So this site just goes through and explains a few of the different types of storage. There are two sort of primary types of storage. There is thin provisioning and thick provisioning. So a thick provision drive, if you say this drive in this VM is going to be 80 gigabytes, it will use 80 gigabytes of space on your server, on your hypervisor, or on your shared storage. You put Windows on that. Windows sees an 80 gig drive. It's all happy. It uses all of that. It's 80 gig all day long. The other option is to use thin provisioning. And what thin provisioning does is it only actually allocates the space on the physical media, on the physical storage array, when it's in use. So it says it's an 80 gig disk. It tells the host operating system it's an 80 gig disk. So your Windows VM sees an 80 gig disk. But actually, if Windows is only using 12 gig, then the image only uses 12 gig on disk. It doesn't use the full 80. Now, that has loads and loads of really good benefits, particularly when you're looking at backups, if you're looking at snapshots, if you're migrating machines around, or moving things from one storage array to another. Loads better, because you're only actually moving the data that's in use. Whereas with the thick provisioning, if you've got an 80 gig disk, you've got to move all 80 gig of it. So much better from that standpoint. The downside is you could potentially have a 2 terabyte disk with 6 terabytes of storage allocated to it. So you could have a load of file servers that are merrily writing away thinking they've got loads of storage left, and the underlying array, the underlying storage repository could run out of space. That causes all sorts of weirdness. Your VMs will start crashing left, right and centre. It's not pretty. So thin provisioning, loads better. Use with caution. Make sure you keep a track of how much disk space you're using, where you're using it, and make sure that you migrate disks, disk images to more media, with more storage. Sorry. If they're getting close to running out of space, because you don't want them running out of space on a live machine. That would be bad. So thin provisioning, use with caution. So the other thing just to bear in mind is that there's local storage, which is just available on the local machine, and then there's shared storage as well. And this table is a little bit confusing, because it sort of has got file-based and block-based, and then thin and shared, and I suppose it's not that confusing, but so what we're going to be setting up today is a local ext storage. So it can be thin provisioned, which is great. It's not shared, which is kind of okay. I mean, we're not doing anything with any shared storage in this video. We are later in another video, and it is officially supported. So that's cracking. That's good. The other one that we tend to use is the default used to be LVM. So we'd use local LVM. That is thick provision only, so it doesn't support thin provisioning, it doesn't support shared, but it is another officially supported way of doing things. In the storage video that we're going to do about the shared storage, we will also be looking at iSCSI and HBA based storage as well, which again, they're both shared storage, but they're not thin provision. So actually, when it comes to the shared storage, we're going to go for this one up here. We're going to end up using NFS. Because you can thin provision, it is shared and it is supported. So that's the one that we will actually plumb for. But I'm going to go through and just do iSCSI and HBA as well, because we can. Okay, so back to this video. First job is to create an ISO repository on this machine. Then we'll create some storage using the rest of what's left on the primary disks, and then we'll create a second storage array using the second array that's in this server. So we'll get on that just now. When we start looking at creating the storage, there's a couple of things to consider. So I'm just going to do an ls block on this just to show you the structure on this machine. So we have SDA, which is the disk that we've installed all the stuff on. It's the array configured in the HP array configuration utility. It's got 136.7 usable on it. We're using some of that already. So we're going to use the rest of that disk as the local ISO storage. And for the local ISO storage, we're actually going to do that file-based. So we're going to make the partition. We will format the partition, we'll mount it, we'll put it in FS tab, and then we tell XCP-ng to use that as its storage. For the SDB and SDC, what we're actually going to do is I'm going to go and remove these partitions. These are leftovers from when I used to have Windows on this server. So I'm actually going to go and remove these, and what we'll do is we'll just tell XCP-ng to use the raw block device, and the Zen backend will just pick that up. It'll deal with it, it'll format it, it'll do all of that good stuff in the background for us. But we do just need to get it, well, I say we need to get it straight first. It would work with the partition based, but it will also work with the direct disk based, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clear the partitions out, and we'll do it that way around. If we just have a very quick look at the website here, so you'll see, again, just going back to the XCP-ng documentation, file-based, which is what we're going to do for the ISO storage, is officially supported, but it says use with caution. I honestly don't know what that caution is. I need to go and work out what that is. But as far as I'm aware, that's the only way to do the local ISO storage, is to do it file-based. So that's what we will do. Okay, so we're going parted /dev/sda. And we're going to print free. That gives us a list of all the partitions on the disk, as well as the free space at the end there, and the start and end points for that free space. That's the bit that I'm really interested in. So we can go make part. We're going to give this a name, which is going to be ISO storage. We're going to start at 44.6 gig, and we're going to end at 147 gig. Okay, and we will press up a couple of times. We'll print free again, just to double check. So yeah, so it's been assigned partition number 4. Starts there, ends there. It's 102 gig in size, which is massive for the ISO storage, really, but you know, it is what it is. And we've got 48.6 gig wastage at the end of the disk. In the 80s, that would have been criminal, but I don't really care now. So we'll quit, and if we now run part probe, just to reread the partition table and list block devices again, and we will now see SDA4 95.2. So it says 102 gig raw there, but usable is 95.2 by the looks of it. That is good. So what we're now going to do is make FS SDA4. Okay, that's all run through. We're going to make directory /local ISO. We will nano the FS tab, and we're going to add this in at the end here. So we're going /dev/sda4. We're going to mount to a local ISO. It's ext4. We want the defaults and 02. While I'm in here, I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit as well, because I'm weird like that. Sorry you're having to sit here and watch me press tab lots. I'm sure there's probably some people twitching saying that I should be using spaces, not tabs. Those people are wrong. They're not really wrong, they've just got a different opinion to me. Okay, and then we'll Control O to write it out and Control X to save. So we will now mount /dev/sda4. That's mounted without errors. We'll run the mount command just to report what's there, and we've got that, and we'll also do df-h sda4. Size is 94 gig. Mounted at local ISO. Excellent. So we'll now go into Zen Orchestra. And we're going to Home, Hosts, click on our host, Storage, Add Storage, check you're on the right host still. Storage name is going to be local. ISO description is going to be storage for local ISO and installation media. The storage type is going to be ISO storage repository local, and the path is going to be /local ISO. Create. And with a bit of luck, that's going to work. Now, as I think I probably mentioned this during the installation video, but I'll just mention it again. This doesn't seem to report the correct size until you've rebooted. I don't really know why, but it doesn't. So it shows the same size as the actual original installed partition size. Who knows? Cool. Okay, so that's the ISO storage done. We will now move on to sorting out the virtual machine storage. We are back on the command line. So we're just going to run parted /dev/sd. Oh no, what do we? Let's just double check this. SDB is what we want. Parted /dev/sdb. We're going to print free, and we are going to remove partition 1, which we can see was a dirty NTFS partition. Dirty Windows. Quit. We're going to do the same with SDC. You can see that. Sorry, there. You see the difference between print and print free. Just in case you care. But again, we'll remove partition 1, which is the dirty NTFS one. We will quit that, and we will part probe that again, just to update everything. And list block. So now we have A with all of its partitions, B and C with nothing there. So that is cool. Okay, so the next bit, there's a couple of ways we can do this. So I will do one for B and one for C. How's that for a plan? From the command line, let me, I'm going to show you where to get this. So again, if you go back to this storage bit of the XCP-ng.org documentation, if you come down a bit further, you will see that there is a command line here for installing, for creating these local storage. So I am literally going to copy and paste that over here. I could be one of those sort of YouTube people that claims to have just memorized everything and actually have it written down over here on a different screen or something. I'm not going to do that because it's not the truth. So we're going to go through this command. So XC is the command that you use to interact with Zen to do most of the things that you want. There are then some subcommands, so XC sr -create. There will be lots of sr commands. If you do sr- and then double tab, it will tell you what all the options are, but create is what we want. We then need the host-uuid. Now, this is a long, horrible string. However, because we only have the one server in this pool, if we just tab, it'll auto-complete for us. So that's the UUID of this server. That makes life nice and easy. The type is ext. The content type is user. I'm not entirely sure what that does. The label, we are going to call this VM storage 1 or 01. And the device configuration is device equals /dev/sdb. All things being equal, providing I've got this right, this will now add that in. There we go. So that's configured, and the return value that you get there is the UUID of the storage repository that's just been created. But if we head back across here, if we go home, hosts, you'll now see that we have VM storage 01. It's just over 400 gig, which again, if we come back here, 410 gig. That's about right. So that's all gone in quite nicely. The other way of doing this is actually through Zen Orchestra, is that we go add storage. I'm sure you can probably work this out for yourself really, but we'll call this VM storage 02. Description. Storage for virtual machines. The type is ext local. The device /dev/sdc. Now, as I said, if you were doing this with partitions on the disks as well, so if you wanted to split this up further, you could have, this is a 300 gig partition, and you could split this into, start that again. This is a 300 gig disk. You could split that down into 3 100 gig partitions and then add them as 3 individual storage repositories. I don't really see the point in doing that. The fewer repositories, the better, really, other than obviously for splitting load up. So you might want to put different amounts of different load on different arrays, but then creating multiple partitions on one array or one set of disks is not actually going to benefit you at all. So I'm just going to use the entire array as I have for the other one. Right, there we are. So we now have the local ISO storage, which is showing 17.59 gig. I'll reboot in a second and that'll fix itself and we'll see that. VM storage 2 and VM storage 1, all sorted, all there, all working. So I think, let me just check my list, what's on the list for today. Local storage, making an ISO repository, second set of disks. I hadn't put down discuss thick versus thin and shared versus not. So I'm going to add that in just so I've got that. So yes, I think we are pretty much done there. So thank you ever so much for watching this video. As I said, this is video 4 in my series. I'm fairly sure it's going to be a 7-part series. Just checking. 7-part series looking at XCP-ng, and it should take you through from having a bare server with nothing on it all the way through to a server with shared storage, with a pool with multiple hosts with multiple virtual machines running on it, and it all being all singing or dancing and all lovely. So yes, I'll get this video processed and posted, and not sure exactly when the next one's going to get done. Hopefully it'll be in the next couple of 3 weeks. Yes, but thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks very much.